Alright, what I'm going to cover today is a DIY solution for mounting a SimRaceway wheel to a G27 base. In a nutshell, it's a plastic plate attached to the back of the SimRaceway wheel, two round stocks, one attached to the back of the plate, one attached to the G27, and the whole thing is held together by a piece of 2-inch pipe, either ABS drain pipe shown here, or it could be PVC. If you're watching this, you're probably already familiar with the SimRaceway wheel, but here's a quick overview. The SteelSeries SimRaceway SRW-S1 is a USB wheel with no base. It's basically a Wii wheel. Its biggest strength is its two analog paddles that work perfectly for gas and brake. It also has two digital paddles that can be used for shifting. The downside is that this wheel is, we believe, out of production, so you probably won't be able to find this page now. The good news is that as of February 2015, you can still find this on Amazon and other sellers. So if you're looking for one, you might want to get out there quickly and pick one up. Mounting the SimRaceway wheel to the G27 base allows us to retain that force feedback from the G27. Also, it should be supported in any game that supports multiple controllers. There may be a few out there that it has trouble with, so check the forums if you have any questions. Before I get into the details of building the adapter, I wanted to point out that there is a ready-made product out there. It's the Simulate. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, but it's a quick change adapter for G27 and any other wheel you want to attach, and he also makes an adapter plate for the SimRaceway wheel. It's a bit expensive, but it does look like a very nice product. Also, if you want to mount a SRW to a Thrustmaster T500, definitely check out Mogens Nielsen's how-to, and he can show you how to do that. And if you have any other information on different products or different ways to mount a SimRaceway wheel to any base, go ahead and share that information in the comments below. As for the materials on this project, the end caps or plugs are cut from 1/2 inch ABS plastic sheet, and the end plate or adapter is cut from 1/4 inch ABS plastic sheet. The cylinder or can is just a piece of 2-inch ABS drain pipe. I'm using number 8 by 1.5 sheet metal screws to attach the front end cap to the G27 base. I used number 6 machine screws to attach the can to the end caps. You could also use number 8. I used 10 32 by 5/8 inch long flathead machine screws to attach the rear end cap to the adapter plate. Now, to attach the adapter plate to the SimRaceway wheel, I used a number 4 by 1 inch long flathead sheet metal screws. These are just a little bit large diameter. There was a risk that I could possibly crack the SimRaceway wheel. They worked for me, but if you can find smaller screws, that'd be good. Later in the tutorial, I'll also show you a way that you can use 1/4 screws to attach the plate to the SimRaceway wheel. So what follows now is the video that I made while I was putting this project together. The G27 that I'm using here was already disassembled, but to do that, just take the screws out of the front, remove the Logitech plate, remove the steering wheel from that. By the way, as you're doing it, you'll need to carefully remove these two plugs from the circuit board. And as you, there'll be 2 screws in the circuit board. Remove those 2 screws. As you pull this out, there'll be another connector here. Carefully pry that off. Once you get that off, then there's going to be 3 screws. And here you'll remove those 3 screws. Once you have those out, you can pull this unit off. Okay, in order to attach the wheel to the base, I'm just going to use a piece of the ABS pipe, and I've cut out 2 round pieces of the 1/2 inch ABS plastic. You can tell the ABS doesn't drill real well, but it'll work fine for us. We're going to have to clean these up just a little bit because I'm using a 2 1/4 inch hole saw, which makes the OD of our end part just slightly too large to fit inside of the 2-inch pipe. So we're just going to grind this down a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, our round blocks are just a little bit too big a diameter to fit inside of our pipe, so we're going to knock those down a little bit. Or if you don't have a belt sander, just get yourself an all-thread bolt, stick it through there, put a knot on it. Chuck that up in the drill and get after it with a sanding block. Alright, so I'm going to make a cardboard template to mark out the holes in the back of the SimRaceway wheel. Okay, so now I've got my pattern cut out, my holes marked. What I've done is I've taken my 1/4 inch ABS and I put tape on it, a little hard to see pen marks on black ABS. And I'm going to go ahead and trace that out, trace my pattern out on it. You can cut this stuff really easily with a jigsaw. Just drill small holes in here for your notches. Use a jigsaw to get in there. A little tricky to cut these notches out. If I was, again, you could probably do away with this tab and just cut one big notch out for those guys. I do have a milling machine, so I cut my piece down a little bit smaller. If you were doing this with a jigsaw, keep your piece a little bit bigger so you have something to clamp it with. And go ahead and trace that out and cut it. Alright, so I've got my plate cut out. Get it on there, make sure it fits. And I've got my holes drilled. We got on the SimRaceway wheel, we've got four raised sections, little nubbers here. What I did for those, I drilled 3/8 inch holes, and then on the back side, I countersunk them, hogged them out with a countersink so that they would clear. They're about 1/2 inch. If I drilled entire 1/2 inch holes, I would have lost a lot of material on here, so that's why I took that approach. I'm using, to mount this, I'm going to use number 4 sheet metal screws. They're 1 inch long. They are just a little bit larger than the stock screw. They go in there, they seem to work pretty good, but they are awfully tight. So if you can find something that's a little bit smaller diameter than a number 4, that would be a good choice. Also, too, the very first plate I ever made a while ago, I actually used 1/4 inch American thread 1/4 inch 1/4 screws, and I threaded out the holes, the clearance holes, the countersink holes for the screws with a 1/4 tap. Now you've got to use what's called a blind tap. It's got a flat end on it. If you use a taper tap, you'll never get enough threads down in a hole for the screw to hold. I didn't actually have one, so what I did is I took an old 1/4 and I just ground the end off. And that allowed me to tap out the plastic, and I'm able to use 1/4 screws, and they hold pretty good. So that's your two options. You can go with remove the stock screws, hold the plate on with replacement screws if you can find a good screw, or leave the stock screws in, tap them out for 1/4, and this one's a little bit long. You need about a 1/2 inch long 1/4 countersunk head, or you could go with a small round head. That'll work too. You might have to grind it down a little bit to clear the paddle here. You might have a little clearance problem there, but you should be okay. So those are the two options for that, and that covers the plate. Okay, so now we just need to mount our circular blocks to the back of the wheel and also onto the base. For the base, we're going to have to create a pattern of our own drilling template. The G27 unit, the holes are so far away from the surface area, we can't really use this to copy our whole pattern over. So we're going to have to make one from scratch. And what I'll do is I'll use a piece of cardboard again. We'll go ahead and I've just drawn basically a T, and we'll figure the distance between these two holes, cut that in half, measure them out here, and then we'll figure out a way to measure the distance down from the bottom hole, go ahead and poke the holes in the cardboard, stick them on there, and then mark out our circle, and then that'll be our pattern. So what I've done is I measured the diameter of the shaft. I transferred that onto the template, centering the center line of the template. So now I know where my holes align that way. I just need the up and down alignment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure the center of this hole down to the bottom diameter. I'll go ahead and transfer that over here, and then I'll take the actual diameter of the template and transfer it up here. By the time I'm done with that, I should be able to find the center. Okay, so I transferred my holes onto my block and drilled them. I used, what did I use? 11/64, and I'm going to use number 8 sheet metal screws to hold it on. These are a little bit short right now because as I'm testing, taking these in and out, I just want to use screws long enough to hold it on. I don't want to wear out the plastic. Once I'm done for the final assembly, I'll probably use about a 1.5 inch screw, possibly even the one that came with the wheel. One thing too is the holes are not radial, so you're going to want to keep track of your top because if you don't mark it, you're going to be messing around trying to figure out how it goes on. Okay, so now let's work on mounting our round block onto the plate that goes on the back of the SimRaceway wheel. We're lucky because the SimRaceway wheel actually has a threaded insert here, and that does appear to be the center of the wheel. So we can line that up with the hole that we have in the center of our block. So what I'm going to do, in fact what I've already done is I've already drilled 3 holes in the block. I just used the same pattern that we used on the G27 wheel. So basically I have 2 of those, but I made the holes smaller. I drilled them out to a number 29, and I'm going to tap them with a 1032 tap. And I'm going to use flathead screws to attach our round block to our plate. Alright, so here's what I did to lay out the holes on my can. I took a piece of paper, cut it to the same width as the can, and then the same circumference. And then I took that paper, laid it out, and I cut it or marked it in half, and then marked that in half again. And that gave me my where my holes are going to be placed around the circumference. And my first block is going to be right on the edge because it's going up flush with the plate. So I know, it's, what is it, 1/2 inch block. So I brought my holes in a 1/4 inch. And when I put this on the wheel, I'm going to go ahead and flush these 2 blocks up to each other. I could extend it out a little bit, but I'm just going to flush them up. So that means basically I've just gone another 1/2 inch for my second holes. And then laid that on there. And then where it comes together in one piece, that's one hole, another hole on that side, another hole on that side. And I'm using number 6 screws. So I'm drilling my holes with the number, whatever number that is for number 6 thread. And then after I have that, I'll go ahead and thread the blocks, drill out the clearance holes, and then I can put it together. Okay, so now I've attached my can and my round block to the plate that goes on the back of the SimRaceway wheel. What I need to do is line it up on the round block on the wheel base and mark my holes so I can drill and tap those, and then we'll just about be done. Alright, so that's about it. I've got my cylinder mounted to my plate. My plate's attached. I did have to do a little cleanup to make sure the paddles cleared the plate. The 1/4 inch plates, it works out nice. It'd be nice if I'd cut this down a little bit. I could do some more cleanup work on here, but it's perfectly functional now. As far as the cable, you can cut the cable and run it through the G27. I do know I have run the cable through there before. The old application I did have it run through there. And you could put a plug on it, put it back together, solder it back together. You could even take the wheel apart, take the cord out of there and put it back together. That's probably more difficult than splitting it and cutting it. But for this application, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the cord loose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and tie wrap it to the can. What I did is I cut two, not sure if that's going to show up. I just relieved that a little bit there, and I'll go just so I can get a tie wrap in here. I'll go and tie wrap the cable on. Okay, so now the cable is tie wrapped to the can. I can go and put it together. Another thought I had is that you could, there's no reason you couldn't, take a mini D-sub connector, and you could mount it, cut out your two plates. You could put a mini D-sub in there. Trick is go ahead and get the holes lined up when you drill your plates. So you drill your two holes, making sure the D-sub plug will line up, and obviously you'd have to get the right spacing on your plates. But you could, if you were ambitious, you could certainly put a little mini D-sub plug in there. So let me go ahead and put the wheel on. Okay, now I just need to line up my holes, and that'll be it. Alright, so that's it. That's a cheap, less than $5, and more or less quick way to mount a SimRaceway wheel to a G27 base.